how do you like them lizards? Do you like them sluggy and old? Well, then Mazdamundi and his Lizardmen are right for you. In this video today, we are going to look at how to level up your legendary lord. In this case, it's Mazdamundi. If you would like to have a different lord analyzed in detail in his faction, then please leave a comment below the video and a thumbs up would be appreciated. So we're going to have all kinds of lords here, and we will look particularly at one lord for each faction in much more detail, and one legendary lord, because most of the skills for legendary lords, or there's many skills which are the same, particularly the blue ones in the lower row, while others can differ quite a lot. So today we are going to look at Mazdamundi and his Lizardmen and his campaign and lord effects, his skills, how you should level the skills, the research technology tree you have, and which trees here to go are best, what buildings are good and you should follow up on in regard to what Mazdamundi himself can skill together with the technology, what are the campaign goals, and of course the rites and the particularly mechanic of the geomantic web and the spawning pools. So let's get right to it. Mazdamundi himself was roused and is a follower of the old ones, probably already taught by the old ones to do magic, follows the great plan, who nobody really knows what it is, but Creative Assembly told us there's going to be an endgame crisis event in which the Lizardmen are going to follow up on that plan, whatever it is. But that's not the point of this video. We're going to talk about Mazdamundi's campaign and lord effects and his starting army. Well, he starts in the middle of the Western Warhammer world between South America and North America, or Lustria and Nagaroth, and he starts in a very cozy and nice place to start a campaign. His starting army is also quite good, with Temple Guards, Proxygors, Sauros Warriors, Skink Cohorts and Bastillodon for healing. His faction effects are diplomatic relations are lowered with most factions, because he is a lizard who always knows what to do, and nobody likes that, as you know. Star chamber buildings are 50% cheaper and right cost are 30% reduced. So these are definitely not the greatest faction effects that I've ever seen. Actually, it's quite forgettable, to be honest, because it's stuff that you almost never use, and the one you use all the time is a negative one with diplomatic relations. So it's not exactly a very outgoing character, Mazdamundi. The lord effects, on the other hand, they tend to be a bit better, and you will see on what Mazdamundi focuses and specializes. His targeting range for spells is 50% increased, which is really nice. He basically becomes an artillery with that. Winds of magic power reserve capacity is increased, so he can cast more magic. His units in his army gain more experience per turn of 50, which is also pretty good. Upkeep for Temple Guards is reduced by 50%, and miscast base chance is reduced by 50%. So basically this means Mazdamundi is going to rely on Temple Guards as his main unit, and he is himself a potent magic damage dealer and supporter of his army. And you should skill and level according to that. So let's have a look at his skills. So when you start the campaign, you will see you'll be able to recruit Lord Croak, which is basically an OP hero that destroys everything. You can build the geomantic web, which we look into later on, and you can receive additional units by performing particular missions, or you receive it from time to time anyway. So when going into the skill section of our favorite fat frog, Mazdamundi, you will see a bunch of really nice skills, and that is quite different from many other legendary lords in which the skill direction is very clear. So Mazdamundi's skills consist of course, his campaign skills in blue and the army buffing skills in red. And in general, it's when you're picking your skills, you should always think about what skill is most useful in as many situations as possible, and which skill may possibly save me the campaign. And I'm particularly talking about the higher difficulties where surviving becomes a bit more challenging. Now, and this is why skilling up your army itself is most of the time the best course of action, particularly the main units, because why? You're using it in every battle and you're using it on very many models. Just have a look, you've got Saurus warriors, 100 of those, and when you skill the melee attack of your Saurus units, you have 200 models that suddenly have +4 melee attack, and that is just much better than, for example, when you've got a melee lord and you skill his melee attack a bit, and you've got one model with a bit more melee attack, so that's just by far not as impactful. Now the skilling, I would suggest starting with the Inspiring Presence to gain even more experience per turn. So you already start with +50 with Inspiring Presence, you get 75 more, so that's quite considerable, so they will skill relatively fast. And then later on, as the next skill, I would suggest you go to Proud Warrior to buff your Saurus, or you're going right for Sacred Guardians to buff your Temple Guards. And Temple Guard gives you 6 melee attack and melee defense. When they're completely skilled, Proud Warrior gives you at maximum skill level +6 melee attack. And now the big question: you may think, hey, maybe I should skip Saurus Warrior skill because you will rely on Temple Guard since your upkeep is reduced. But the reality of things is, depends on how you are playing your campaigns, because the first time you'll be able to really build Temple Guards is when you've leveled up your main building chain up to level 4, takes 7 turns, and then you level up your barracks, takes additional, it's like 6 + 7 + 4 +5 skills, and then you need the Smith as well, taking additional 4, so I think you'll need about 6, 13, 18, 20, something like 25 to 30 turns only to be able to get the Temple Guards, and that is if you are able to grow as fast as you need to. So you can probably think about getting Temple Guards maybe at turn 40 or something, which is for most campaigns already mid to late game, since when you are looking at statistics of how many turns people play in these campaigns, only few campaigns go to turn 100. So that's the unfortunate thing. If you intend to play campaigns for the long game, then by any means go for Temple Guards and maybe skip the Saurus Warrior buff. But even then, I would suggest going for Saurus skills first, because it will on one hand buff your starting army and the most challenging beginning part of your campaign, where you need good standard units, and in addition it will combine very well with the technology here of the Tablet of the Saurus, where you get more melee defense, melee attack and weapon strength for your Saurus warriors. So your Saurus warriors become incredibly strong when you combine all of these skills, and you will want to conquer all these lands relatively quickly. So my suggestion is doing right that. So skilling at least the first skill for Proud Warrior. Going up the whole range is maybe not necessary. So the first skill, Proud Warrior, at least 1 skill point. Sacred Guardians, also 1 skill point. Maybe 2 is here, but a bit more useful because you'll get 4 melee defense for the second skill point. And after you've got that, fill that up at some point, maybe not right at the beginning, but once you've skilled enough, go for Jungle Domination, gives you even more weapon strength and armor for Saurus, and Temple Guard Slant Force Field later on is always good for damage resistance. But these are passive skills: Proud Warrior, Sacred Guardian, and Jungle Domination, so go for them when you got the chance. Skirmishers, on the other hand, buffs your skinks. That's more like for Oxyotl, the Legendary Lord, where you focus on a skink army. So if you want to go for skinks with Mazdamundi, then go for that. Otherwise, I'd suggest to skip it. Just like Swift Rider, you don't need that, except if you want to make armies full of Pterodon Riders or Cold Ones, which is unlikely in my opinion. I wouldn't do it. It's just not really worth it to go for that, except if you want to go for memes. Pharaoh Connoisseurs, Dread Saurians. You've so almost none of these units ever, except if you're trying to build a fun Doom stack, then go for Hunt Leader or the Beast Driver, but usually if you're playing reasonably, just go for Proud Warrior and Sacred Guardians and don't do the others for the Mazdamundi campaign and then the Jungle Domination. That should be enough for the red skill line. When we go to the magic and the personal skills of Mazdamundi, they are really, really nice. It's just amazing what great skills Mazdamundi has. He begins, he's relatively weak. 45 armor, 26 attack, 32 defense. That sucks. He's a caster. He can heal at the beginning and he can buff a melee attack and defense, which is really strong for Saurus warriors. But once he levels up his personal skills, he becomes amazing. He'll get Slag at level 18, and suddenly he's a powerhouse also in melee. 130 armor, more speed, more weapon strength, charge bonus, a ranged attack, and he causes terror, so becomes really nice then. But even without that, at level 4 you should definitely skill Unfathomable Presence, because you'll basically get regeneration. Well, it's called a barrier here, 800 barrier hit points, increasing your health points by 10% baseline. You go into melee, absorb a bit of damage, go out, let the barrier regenerate, go in. It's basically infinite healing for Lord Mazdamundi, particularly in the campaign. Of course, in multiplayer might be a different story, the barrier, where an enemy will not let you regenerate, but in campaign you usually can do that. Further on, miscast chance reduction, attribute terror. Here the Harrowing Scrutiny is not as good because you'll get that anyway with Slag. Transcendent healing is of course an insanely good regeneration, particularly once you get your hit points and armor up with Slag, and it becomes incredibly strong. And higher state of consciousness for faster barrier replenishment, so they have less delay, so you get, it basically becomes unkillable. Once you've got a few units to block the enemy units, you can just go into melee, do something, let your barrier points get reduced to 0, go out, go in again. Even if you don't do it, you'll get regeneration. So it's just insane what Mazdamundi can do. And he even has damage skills with reserves of Eldritch. You have to start with that, but starting at level 16, you'll get your damage spells with Vortex, Banishment, and Ruination of Cities. And with that, you can screw an enemy army up quite a lot, so go for them once you have the chance. The skills here on the top are not as important. Telekinesis is nice to protect you from melee, from missile resistance. At the beginning, he has 40%, which is really nice, so you don't have to care too much for his low armor at range. But once you get Slag, I think it really goes down a bit, so you need the telekinesis again, becomes a bit more stable. Regarding his magic, Harmonic Convergence is a nice spell, particularly to buff your Saurus warriors, because Saurus warriors, they do have a lot of weapon strength. It's 52, it's extremely high for such a low tier unit, but they suffer from low melee attack, particularly in melee defense, so they cannot create the damage as good, because other units have a higher melee defense than their melee attack. So when you buff them, and that is something that has been used in multiplayer quite a lot, although not exactly with Harmonic Convergence, but with Bionis Time Warp, you can buff your Saurus warriors, and boom, they will suddenly mash through low armor enemies like a hot knife through butter. On the other side, Rolling Skies, don't really need that because it only affects flying units. Apotheosis for healing is good, skill that. Net of Amentok can be really nice to stop an enemy unit from charging or catching them. Curse of the Midnight Wind is not that amazing for the Saurus, is particularly not early game in my opinion. You can take that later on. Earlier you should go for Comet of Cassandora, try the enemy and make the enemy blob around a hero of yours or a unit, and then drop that Comet of Cassandora for massive damage. Together with the Shield of Saphri, damage resistance for 9 seconds is also a nice skill, and of course Arcane Greater Conduit for more spell mastery and higher power recharge rate. And when you've got all of that, Comet of Cassandora for damage, Focus of Mystery for damage, Ruination of Cities for damage. You can really screw an enemy army up quite a lot with not too much magic cost. And you can heal your army as well as your lord, who heals himself with regeneration and the barrier. That's quite strong skill line setup. But as for what should you skill when, I would suggest go for Inspiring Presence, then Proud Warrior, at least one skill point here. The second one is not that important anymore because you don't get as much out of it. Then one skill point is Sacred Guardian, so you can, or maybe two for your Temple Guard, or you can also postpone it a little bit until you really have your Temple Guard production going. Afterwards, go maybe for Route Marcher, because a little bit more campaign movement range is always pretty nice. But when you have the possibility, level up your magic to go to reach Comet of Cassandra relatively fast, level up your healing, and of course your healing of Mazdamundi, as well as the damage spells, although this is only available at rank 16. But you will see, I mean, since you've got so much good stuff, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you begin here with your skill number 6, 7, 8, and then you get 2 points here, 9, because you need them to follow up on that, and your skill points will fill up quite quickly. Basically, get the magic, get the skills of Mazdamundi, and that's what you do. So, regarding the technology, because there's quite a bit of, how to say it, combinations possible that make the army of Lord Mazdamundi even stronger. When you go to technology, you will find it's pretty chaotic. There's so much stuff in here. So what is good, what is bad? In general, there's the skills of the Tablet of Beasts. The lowest one just buffs your Pterodon Riders, Ripidexes, Total Units, waste. Don't do it. You've got so little as almost none of these units usually, except if you want to go for fun with a Pterodon Rider army. But it's basically crap. Don't do it. The best is definitely the Tablet of the Saurus. This is insane. Gives you +5 for melee defense for Saurus units, +10% weapon strength for Saurus units, and +5 melee attack for Saurus units. And if you go further, you can reduce the upkeep, gives yourselves more armor, and in the end here you can even get a buff for your Temple Guards. But this comes really, really late, unfortunately, and I think few players will even go so far to be able to reach that skill. But now, take this combination. You get +5 melee defense, +5 melee attack for Saurus, +10% weapon strength, and then you combine that with the skill setup of Mazdamundi, where you can get even more +6 melee attack for Saurus warriors, and when you go to the level 7 Saurus warriors, you get even, again, 12% weapon strength more. You're looking at more than 20% weapon strength increase for Saurus warriors, so pushing them beyond 60, easily beyond 60 weapon strength. A melee attack, that is something around 40, and a melee defense, also in a similar range. So, and with that weapon strength, they will crush any kind of low armored opposition, and even armored enemies with 18 armor piercing damage will have a tough time standing up to those Saurus warriors. I can guarantee it. I mean, you just skill that here, skill Mazdamundi, Saurus become insanely strong. So that's why I definitely suggest here Tablet of the Saurus, most important one. Particularly the first 3 are the most important. So you may also choose to go for the Tablet of the Skinks if you want to build a skink-based army. That's also very nice. It gives you poison for all skink units. Maybe even worth it just to have 1 or 2 skinks around. Even though I think skinks have poison attacks anyway, chameleon skinks at least, and skink skirmishers as well. So, I mean, it does not really give you too much additional advantage. Of course, the normal infantry doesn't have poison attacks, but I mean, you want to have at least some chameleon skinks or skink skirmishers to get the poison damage into your enemy, because it reduces their damage output. So you may want to at least get the first one of that. Further on, you can have the campaign buffs. Tablet of Crafts buffs your income from trade, from industry, or reduces production times or cost, increases income from cities, which is nice, but well, usually trade and industry income 5% doesn't do that much of a difference, and it particularly does not will not save your campaign compared to elite Saurus warriors. So I would put that up for later. If you're playing the long game, you may want to do that. Further on, Tablet of Monuments, that's a nice skill, growth plus 10, even when you're only playing for 50, maybe to maximum 100 turns, plus 10 growth will stack up over time. So that's one you can take after the Saurus buffs, in my opinion. And maybe also reduce the production cost for your buildings. Further on, Sequence of Expansion gives you even more growth, particularly for the long game. That becomes quite nice. What's here on the right side is just usually not available for most of the campaigns most of the time, because the skills here on the left side, they're usually much better than most skills you get on the right side, particularly when you think about how fast you can get the stuff here and how long it takes to get the stuff on the right side. Tablet of the Order is, probably one of the worst lines to do. Enemy hero success chance and your hero success chance a little bit changed. Diplomatic relations with High Elves and Lizardmen just by 5 increased, almost nothing. Corruption reduction, hero success chance, corruption reduction. You can basically forget the Tablet of the Order. I would not touch that for any reason. And then Tablet of War, more income from loot is nice. Leadership plus 3 is something you don't need with lizards because leadership is already really high. Campaign movement range with Sequence of Marching is pretty nice. The highest buff you can get for lizards. Magic drop chance is a nice bonus. Income, more loot, even more leadership, and casualty replenishment here. That's definitely a good one, but well, you will almost never reach it in your campaign because you've got so many other nice things to level up. And on the top one, a bit cheaper skinks and chameleon skinks, higher ranks for Sauruses and skink units, which is nice, but I mean, here you get plus 2 melee attack and melee defense for a new Saurus run. If you skill Tablet with Saurus and Sequence of Mass Combat, you already get a plus 5 bonus. But combination is of course a nice thing, but if you have to choose, I mean, pick this one here first compared to the Sequence of Saurus spawning. And the other one is basically the similar stuff. Yeah, so that's my 2 cents on the tech tree. Skill your Tablet of the Saurus up to the right side, and then Tablet of Monuments, go for growth, and for example go for later on for yeah, then you can just increase your industry. But these are the important ones. Then go for what you want to have yourself. So regarding buildings, what do we have here with Hexuatl? We start with a really nice first faction capital. This is not something all of the parties around have, or all the factions. You begin with a very nice gold mining pit. You should definitely build this relatively quickly because you always need money. It gives you a lot, 300 and golden idols for trading, and reduces recruitment cost later on a lot. But of course, until you have your temple guards, it will take a while. Once you should try to get up your main building chain as fast as possible to get the temple guards if you're playing the slightly longer game, because they're just profiting from the cost reduction quite a lot, because when you're looking at Mazdamundi's army, temple guard is even cheaper than Saurus. It's like 150 compared to 188. Usually the temple guard costs 300, so when you do not play Mazdamundi, just go for Saurus all along. But then you don't even need to go up to the 3rd rank. I would even recommend not to do the Temple Guard barracks, but just go to the Sacred Spawning Caverns to get the shielded Saurus warriors, which are definitely better than the ones without shield. And then level 2 is enough. Even here for the Mazdamundi campaign, I think going for Temple Guard just takes so long. I wonder whether it's really worth it, except if you're playing the long game. So yeah, go here for Sacred Spawning Caverns once you can, then only build Saurus warriors with shields. Further on, build the gold mine, and right away build the, where is it? here the skink foraging camp for growth, because growth is extremely important even for a short campaign. After 10 turns you will have 200 more growth points, which can make the difference between the next level up or not, and once you're happy you can even cancel that later on again. What else? More control if you're playing on higher difficulties. This may be interesting because on legendary, like this setting is here, you get a difficulty level a reduction, a difficulty level penalty of -8 public orders, so then you may want to do that, but in the beginning it may not be too difficult, depends, or too troublesome, because you can get extra XP from vanquishing the rebel armies, so that might be quite nice. Skink favelas, always nice for more income, and apart from that you may want to build a geomantic pylon to create your geomantic web, which you can see here. It buffs your rights, but that is, I think, something that probably a last building. Not really that great in my opinion, because the value of a building is quite high, particularly here with the gold mines and the extra 200 income by skink favelas and the growth. There's a lot of things you want to build before you should go for the geomantic pylon, in my opinion. Of course, that's just my humble opinion. Yeah, so what else to level? If you want to spice up your army a little bit, you may want to go for pterodons. Then you can cause additional damage to particularly low tier infantry, low armor infantry with the fire leech bolas. And afterwards, if you want to have some kind of artillery or like really strong ranged units, go for the salamander hunting pad. With their explosive missile strength ammunition, they can demolish large units, they can demolish small units, and they're quite fast to be at the place where you want them to be. So I would suggest going for the salamander hunting packs if you're looking for some ranged firepower, except if you want to do the skirmisher build and just build a sack full of skink skirmishers or chameleon skinks, just skirmishing away from the enemy line while pestering them with poison darts. And of course you may want to go to the Skink Oracle. There's good magic spells and comes with a Troglodon to ride upon, but it will take quite a while until you reach that time. Again, to be honest, in my campaigns, I think when I are at level 4 Hexawatl Temple City building, then the campaign is almost already won, and it became kind of boring, so I start my next one. Might be different for you when you want to conquer the whole world. So, what are the campaign goals actually? So let's have a look at what Creative Assembly gives us there to offer. Looking at the campaign goals here, clicking on the lower right one, you'll see victory conditions. Destroy the following factions: Keeper of Bliss and Skeggy, and loot or raise 30 settlements in total. So it's basically a good suggestion what to do in the beginning of the campaign. So I have the Toggle Fog of War mod activated, so we can toggle the Fog of War. Capturing all these regions here in that kind of peninsula space is really nice, because you've got only very small area to cover, which enemies can come from the top, and you have a small area to cover where enemies can come from the south, and so that's a very nice, very stable position. Only minor side factions here together with Mazdamundi, so you should have little trouble capturing the Ziggurat of Dawn, the Skeggy, the Port Reaver, delete the Ogres, and then crush Slaanesh and the Orcs here in the south, depending on what you want to do. Later on, the next target is capturing all of Lustria, Kulchan Place, Headhunter's Jungle, Spine of Sotek, and whatnots. Basically capturing the whole of Lustria here in the south, and now that might become a little bit more troublesome, because there's other lizards that may or may not like you. There's some dwarves that tend to stab you in the back, and there's clan pestilence. They might be going on your nerves. There's some dark elves somewhere, then there's the vampire coast. So there's quite some strong enemies. And I think there's Bretonia, they're new since Total Warhammer 3, Immortal Empires, and of course the Hans Marshall's expedition.
All right.
Well, the balance was a little bit changed again since patch 2.2, so apparently the AI became a little bit more aggressive, so I don't know how that tends to work out for the campaign right now. But since your starting position is so strong, you should be able to make a slow and easy expansion into Lustria if you like that. Although, you can also just disregard that campaign goal and go to the north. That might be a bit more challenging. Morathi is running around here. You've got Taurox, I think. Is he still here? Yeah, there he is. Who can definitely make your day a bad one. And then Crush Malekith, which may be more pleasing or more rewarding to crush the Dark Elf King. Or you can just go say whatever, destroy Ulthuan, conquer the Empire, destroy the Gadon's graveyard. There's much to do for Mazdamundi, or you can even take the, what's it called here, the Sea Lane, and go somewhere else to Cathay on the other side of the world. Or basically it's not really the other side, just around the edge here. So nice starting position, very defendable, very strong position for Lord Mazdamundi, particularly with its starting army and the buffs he can get for the Saurus Warriors. So I think you should be relatively fine here. So what's next? Next on the list we do have our Rites. Mazdamundi and the Lizards come with Rites, like almost all factions by now. And they come in different usefulnesses. You've got the Rite of Primeval Glory here on the left side. Is very expensive with 8,400 gold particular, and it you can only cast it once every 50 turns, and that is not a lot. Basically you can cast it once for a normal campaign as the campaign lengths go. Lasts for 15 turns, but it's really strong. You can cast 3 Feral Cold 1 cavalry units somewhere to disrupt enemy formations and to disrupt particularly enemy ranged units. And it can save your campaign when you are under pressure. And you can cast it 3 times for each battle for 14 turns, so you may be able to generate a lot of value from these Feral Call ones. But really save it until you really need it, because, well, 15 turns cooldown, that's quite a lot. Next one is the Rite of Sotek. It is, well, basically useful when you are having, when you're fighting with skink builds or skink armies, because it buffs your skinks by 10 melee attack, weapon strength for skinks, missile strength for skinks, causes attrition to the enemy. May not be as useful to Mazdamundi, except if you have built several additional armies, which is possible. I mean, only Mazdamundi has that great buff for, and that great cost reduction for the Temple Guards. But when you're saying, okay, this is the Saurus army and the Temple Guard army, all the other armies you build will be skinks, then definitely also go for the tablet of the skinks, buff your skinks, and by all means also use the Rite of Sotek when you need it. It can make the difference between victory or defeat that 10 melee attack and weapon strength bonus. Further on to the right, we've got the Rite of Ferocity. Gives you 80 experience per turn, although only for 5 turns. More loot, more recruitment rank, more recruitment capacity. So this can, well, can get its money back quite quickly. If you intend to fight a few battles, you'll get that back in quite fast. Also, unit experience is almost, it becomes insane. You get basically 50 for Lord Mazdamundi himself. And then there's a technology, I think, where you can even more... forgot where it is. Where is it? Yeah, you got some other skills where you got even more experience points per turn. But I lost track of where it was. Doesn't matter. So your units will skill quite fast when all of this is active. You may want to activate that often. And on the right side, Rite of Awakening, that's actually quite important, because it is the only way you can get Aslan Mage Priest Generals, because without that you basically have to recruit Kroxigor Ancients, Red Crested Skink Chiefs, and Saurus All-Blood Generals, which are not as good since they cannot do magic. In general, when you choose a hero or lord, you want to go for a magic caster, because you can get a lot more damage and use for your buck when you have one of these. So that's why your starting hero here, Cricket, it's not really that great, because what does he do? I mean, you can get the training skills, so your units will get additional levels faster, but apart from that, it's just one guy. So he can keep the enemies bound for a while. Once you got Mazdamundi, his air effect damage spells, he can make the enemies blob around him, and then they can be killed by Mazdamundi's mystery and ruination of city spells. He has a poison, so regarding lords or hero units, he's not that bad. Also comes with bonus versus large and armor piercing and a shield, so he's quite stable all in all. But since you already have a mage, I mean, it's okay to have him. You can also disband him if you don't think you need him. 200 upkeep is quite a bit. You can get the Saurus Warrior Regiment for that. It's not too bad. Yeah, you can keep him if you like to. So, and that's basically it. Just to make an overview again, just to get everything together. In conclusion, my suggestion for skilling Lord Mazdamundi, which is of course my opinion, you can have a completely different one, which is also fine. Skill your Proud Warrior at least one level, skill your Sacred Guardian at least one level, then go for your Magic, Comet of Cassandora and Shield of Safri to buff yourself, go for the Apotheosis for healing, go for the Arcane Forging to damage enemy lords and heroes, of course Great Arcane Conduit for more magic, go for the regeneration, go for the barrier hit points, the Focus of Mystery, the ruination of cities, and maybe the Route Marcher if you want to do that. And by that point you are probably already through with the campaign and want to start the next one. So if you do want to really go for the campaign skills on the lower side, go for, I would say, probably Control or Corruption Reduction. That's a nice one because it is a passive skill, you don't think about it, and it's usually useful. And further on the right side, increase replenishment rates. That's a nice one because you can fight more, which is something you definitely need. Lightning Strike can also be quite nice in a lot of situations, so enemy reinforcements are not present anymore. So regarding technology, I would strongly suggest going the Tablet of the Saurus and Tablet of the Skinks for your Saurus and your Skinks armies, and then maybe Tablet of the Monuments, and the rest basically up to you. And yeah, that's basically it. Of course, oh yeah, I forgot the Blessed Spawnings. Sometimes you can get more and other troops with the Blessed Spawnings become available. You should save them for the time when you need a quick army at some point. So, for example, you're fighting a battle here in the south with two armies, but suddenly an enemy army approaches from the north. You can just build a lord and then put all the Blessed Spawnings in there, and it may save you from a lot of trouble. So, but usually they're definitely worth it to have them around. Right, so that's it. I hope you liked it. I think I'll make 1 or 2 of these tutorial videos each week, so leave a sub and see you around.